Range script loaded, you can now press Escape and select either Choose Slot or Choose Coalition Red, and then pick your aircraft. The MiG-21 BIS simulated on DCS can employ two types of rockets, the heavier S-24 or the lighter S-5. On this training mission we will learn how to use the S-24, on a subsequent mission we will use the S-5. The S-24 is a large rocket designed by the Soviet Union during the 1950s and entering service on the early 1960s. Its name is based on the rocket's diameter, 24 centimeters. On DCS it's available in two variants, S-24A with a high explosive fragmentation warhead, and S-24B with a delayed impact fuse, for bunker busting duties. For this mission we have mounted two S-24A on the outer pylons, and two S-24B on the inner pylons. The specifications of this weapon are listed below. Press space bar to continue. For this training mission, we will use a weapons range near Wadi Abu Rish Air Base, which employs assets created by the 476th Virtual Fighter Group, plus a weapons range script developed by the user Sirabob, which will allow you to gauge your shooting accuracy. We have placed two smoke markers, green and blue, at the entrance of the rocket target attack area, to help you in locating the target. However, the smoke lasts for just 5 minutes, so don't take too long searching for the range. To succeed, perform two passes over the target, one firing the inner rockets, S-24B, and the other firing the outer rockets, S-24A. You can access the attack statistics by calling up the F10 option of the communications menu. Perform the passes in a general direction west to east, so that the mission logic can keep track of them. Press space bar to begin the training. We will first contact ATC to request taxi clearance. Select Radio Channel 1, set audio switch to radio, and then press the push-to-talk button on the throttle. The DCS communications menu should appear. Select F1, request taxi to runway.
Uzi 1, request taxi to runway.
After a few seconds, ATC should answer and clear us to a takeoff runway. Take note of the runway number. If there is other traffic on the taxiways, ATC might delay the answer until the taxiways are clear. Press spacebar once the controller gives you clearance. ATC cleared for us runway 19 Lima, which is very near, to our right. Feel free to perform, or not, the before taxi checklist. Press spacebar once you are ready to taxi. We are now ready to taxi. Increase throttle slightly, test wheel brakes, and once the aircraft advances, turn right to taxi towards runway 19 Lima. This is taxiway Echo. Proceed forward and stop just short of the designated runway. We will now contact ATC again to request takeoff clearance. Press the push-to-talk button on the throttle. The DCS communications menu should appear. Select F1, request takeoff.
Uzi 1,
After a few
request
seconds,
takeoff.
ATC should answer and give us clearance.
Uzi
Press
1,
spacebar
you're
once
clear for
ATC
takeoff
has
runway
granted permission to enter the runway.
300 at QFE 733.91.
Okay, now that you have clearance, look left and right to ensure there is no other traffic, release the brakes, and enter the runway. Turn left, and align with the center line of the runway. Once aligned, Press the wheel brakes and stop the aircraft to a complete halt. Good, you should now proceed with the rest of the before takeoff procedure, which you already learned on the takeoff training mission. Press spacebar once you are ready to take off. Fully apply and hold the wheel brakes. Advance the throttle lever to full throttle. Confirm the nozzle open light is illuminated. Check EGT, engine oil pressure, and the oil light should be off. Release the wheel brakes. Steer the aircraft with just rudder inputs. At 250 km per hour, pull back the stick and rotate. Airborne, increase attitude to 10 degrees. Retract the landing gear. On 3 red lights, set the gear lever to its neutral center position. And latch the gear lever. Check nose cone has extended, and the warning, inlet cone out, is lit. Turn taxi lights off, down, with a right click. Retract flaps and retrim. Flaps retracted, maintain 600 km per hour until you reach the mission ceiling. Heading to the range is 205 to 210 degrees. Check the ARU gauge, its pointer should deflect to the right. The stabilizer on light should be off. To power up the weapons system, first turn on the power switches for pylons 1, 2, and 3, 4. This will energize the pylons and enable the operation of their locks, to allow the release of the weapons. The infrared and semi-active radar heat switch is not needed for rockets. The missile and rockets launch switch should be turned on just before your rocket attack, as it powers up the weapons launch subsystem. As we are about to perform our attack, turn it on now. Use the weapon selector knob to select the rockets you want to employ. For the S-24 rockets, 1-2 selects the inner stations, while 3-4 selects the outer ones. The rockets will be fired in pairs. Good, you have selected the outer stations, with S-24A rockets, fitted with fragmentation warheads. The main element that the MiG-21 pilot uses to deliver its weapons is the ASPP-FD optical sight. As a first step, make sure it has electric power, its sight power switch should be up. The sight offers 2 different aiming aids, a pipper, which is mostly used for cannon use against non-maneuvering targets, and a fixed net, which is used for bombing and rocket attacks. You can have both active at the same time, turn them on with the highlighted switches. Adjust their relative brightness as needed, using the highlighted knobs. For this mission, leave the pipper bright and the net dim. Press spacebar once the sight brightness has been adjusted. The sight can be used in two main modes, air-to-air or air-to-ground. For this mission, select air-to-ground mode by setting the sight master mode switch to its G and D down position. The sight operation modes are selected using its left side controls. For rocket employment, select gun launch mode. For rockets, select L and C, down. Shooting or bombing, for rockets employment, select S. Automatic or manual mode. On manual, the pilot must manually set the angular depression knob of the sight, using the marks 0, gun, S5M and S24 for rockets, etc. While on automatic, the sight sets the depression based on which weapon is currently selected. For this mission, select Auto. MSL or Gyro. MSL renders the pipper cage to the center line of the sight, while Gyro has the pipper moving as the ASP attempts to predict the target position and is used only for air-to-air weapons against non-maneuvering targets. For air-to-ground, select MSL, up. Rotate the target size knob to set the target size. The pipper diameter will adjust accordingly. For this mission, our target circle measures 65 meters. Press spacebar to continue. The MiG-21 radar can be used as a ranging sensor to help the sight to provide an accurate shooting cue, measuring the distance from the aircraft to the target. The radar requires a 3 to 5 minutes warm-up period, and it has cooling restrictions that limit its use to 35 to 40. Enable the ranging mode by selecting locked beam on the highlighted switch. When used for ranging, no other radar option needs to be set. To launch underwing weapons, you press and hold the weapon release button on the flight stick. To prevent accidental launches, the button is fitted with a safety cover. The DCS developer has implemented a small cheat, where the safety cover is automatically raised when you actuate the weapon release bindings. This allows most users to just forget about this cover and simplifies their HOTAS bindings. However, the cover remains raised after you have pressed the weapon release. We have finished our examination of all the different weapon elements. Press spacebar to continue onto the practice section of the training. The weapon's range is to our left. Keep an altitude of 3,000 meters and turn left to enter the range. You are almost past the range. Turn sharply left and look for the weapon's range. Maintain 3,000 meters until you initiate your attack run. The weapon's range is in front of us. 2 smoke markers, green and blue, mark the entrance for the rocket target attack path. Do not confuse the rocket target circle with the larger circle used for bombing training. The rocket target is enclosed within a square, on the north side of the range. As the actual rocket attack lasts just a few seconds, we will explain now the details on how to perform it, so pay careful attention. The S-24 rockets have a maximum advertised range of 3 kilometers, but the MiG-21 sight only displays distances up to 2 kilometers, and for greater precision we will launch the rockets at around 1.2 to 1.6 kilometers. For greater precision, you will launch the rockets using a 30 degrees dive from an altitude of at least 3,000 meters. To better judge when to initiate the dive, do not fly directly towards the target circle. Instead, fly on a slightly offset heading to the left or right, so that our aircraft's nose does not hide the target. To avoid negative Gs, we will initiate the dive by rolling inverted towards the target. Start the dive when the target has reached the point where the canopy frame meets the cockpit border. Once you have the nose of the aircraft pointing down onto the target, roll back to an upward position and maneuver to place the target within the sight. Once you have the target within the sight, maneuver to align the fixed net axis with the target. The range scale shows the radar ranging distance to the point marked with a small x. Southwest. Strive to place this point directly on the target. If the red brake light illuminates before the launch, interrupt the dive and make a brake to the right and up, to climb back and fly a circuit to repeat the attack later. Disregarding this warning light can lead you to impact the ground. Take care to not exceed a 5G load, or other external stores, like the fuel tank or other rockets, may detach from the aircraft. The Pipper will begin to move up once the range is below 2,000 meters. Keep maneuvering until you have the Pipper over the target. Once the distance is below 1,600 meters, press the weapon release button to fire the first rocket pair. Once you have fired the rockets, break the dive to the right and begin to climb back and circuit the range to make a second attack run. Avoid the common mistake of keeping on the dive to watch the rockets hit. Break away as soon as the rockets have been launched. This is particularly important with the S-24 rocket, as it has a large blast radius which could hit your aircraft. On a real combat attack, you would release flares during the break, in case defense forces fires back at us, but on this practice it isn't needed. Press spacebar to exit the pause and begin the actual practice attack. Remember to take the radar out of standby and turn it on. Our airspeed should be 600 to 700 kilometers per hour, as the attack dive will increase it, and the altitude above ground should be 3,000 meters minimum. Throttle to minimum, roll inverted for the attack dive. Once the target is in view, roll again to an upward attitude. The Pipper will come up once you are in range. Fire when at 12 to 1,600 meters, by pressing the stick's weapon release button. You still have 2 rockets left. Turn right, climb and circuit the range, for a second pass at the target. You need to select a new pair of rockets for the next attack. Use the weapon selector knob to select the inner stations, 1, 2. Good, inner station selected. For another attack run, climb back to at least 3,000 meters. We are far enough, turn right to go back towards the target. Deactivate the armament. For the rockets is very simple. Close the weapon release cover by clicking on it or with the keys right control plus right shift plus the equals sign. 2. Set the radar to off to preserve its refrigerant supply. Set the missile and rocket launch switch to off. This removes all power from the weapon's launch subsystem, but it doesn't affect the gun, since it has a separate power switch. Good, this completes the armament safe procedure. You can check your range results by calling up the communications menu, select F10, Other, then select F1, Range, and finally, click F3, My Bombing Results. You have completed the main subject of this training mission. Select. Press spacebar if you want to fly back and land at our airbase, or press backspace to end the training now. Okay, you have chosen to proceed and practice a landing at our airbase. Continue straight north. We will contact ATC once we are nearer the airbase, to get an approach bearing. Our airbase should be visible to our left. Let's contact it to request landing clearance. Make sure the radio is tuned to channel 1, the audio switch is set to radio, and then press the PTT button. On the communications menu select F5, ATC, F1, Wadi Abu Rish, F1, inbound. The tower will answer with the heading and distance to its landing approach point, and it will also inform runway 19 has been assigned. You can use either runway 19 Romeo or 19 Lima. Press F12 to clear the communications menu. Press spacebar once you receive the ATC's answer. Continue flying north until you are around 15 kilometers past the airbase, at which point you will turn to the left to initiate a visual approach to the runway. Once you get nearer the airbase, ATC will ask you to contact tower. At that point press PTT again, and then select F1, request landing. We are 15 kilometers past the airbase. Make a left turn to 270 degrees, and follow that heading until you can see the airbase runways just above our left wingtip. Maintain an altitude of 1,000 meters AGL and reduce speed to 600 kilometers per hour. Good, now turn left again and begin to align with the runway, which is on a 190 degrees heading. Keep 1,000 meters AGL, do not yet begin the descent. While you approach the runway, perform the steps of the before landing procedure. At 550 km per hour, lower the landing gear. Once you get 3 greens, remember to return the lever to neutral and lock it. At 500 km per hour, set flaps to 25 degrees. At 380 km per hour, set flaps to 45 degrees. Increase throttle to maintain 380 km per hour. Do not drop speed below 340.
Uzi 1, check landing gear. Wind 195 at 2 meters per second. Runway 19.
On touchdown, move the throttle back to idle, and keep the nose up at about 5 degrees pitch. Let the aircraft slow down by itself. The landing parachute is used only on short runways. Touchdown.
Uzi 1, taxi to parking area.
Exit the runway at the first available exit, to the left. This is Taxiway Hotel. Proceed forward, towards the ramp. Perform the following steps after leaving the runway. Flaps, up. Drop chute button, press to jettison the drag chute, only if it was deployed during the landing. Nose wheel brake switch, off. Pitot heat, off. Emergency heat, off. This completes the after landing procedure. Press spacebar if you want to park and practice the MiG shutdown, or press backspace to finish the training at this point. Look at the airbase diagram. Taxi the aircraft towards the nearest parking position, marked in light green on the diagram. Once at a proper spot, simply bring the aircraft to a full stop. Finally, proceed to shut down the aircraft following the procedure. Switch off all electric loads, with the exception of the dispenser fuel tank pump, the engine afterburner, and the battery ground power switches. Begin with the circuit breakers panel on the right cockpit wall. Turn off the radar and the battery heater. On the left side of the cockpit, raise the flaps and turn off the highlighted systems. On the right console, turn off the highlighted switches. Throttle. Pull fully back, then click on its lock lever to move it into its stop position. Before the engine rotors come to rest, turn off the battery, the dispenser tank fuel pump, the afterburner, and the two PO750 inverters. Open canopy. Release its pressurization sealing lever. Unlock the canopy. Open it with its overhead handle. Shutdown finished. This training mission has been fully completed. Congratulations. Press spacebar to finish.